This is the Game Makers Pod, where we feature creators and their stories. Hey guys, I'm Raphael Soccer here with Time Lost Studios, and joining me today, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Ben. I go by Safer Online, and have a variety of roles, but I'm helping Time Loss out with Fractals. I am also lead developer of Null Signal Games, the makers of Netrunner, and I have my first solo project coming out with Pink Hawk Games later this year. So look out for it on Kickstarter September 29th.
And we will definitely talk more about all that later. But per what we normally do here on Game Makers, let's kick off by sort of talking about why you got into game design in the first place. And what was the first game you remember playing? Is always a question I like to go for.
First game I remember playing, I think, was a firefighting game for like old school Macs, like early 90s, probably mid 90s. I think that was the first game that my parents let me play. Other games that I got to play at that time, there was like I'm not going to remember the name of it, but there was like a very like space, maybe cyberpunky, like RTS game. Um, yeah, I don't know that. I haven't thought about that game in ages.
This was like on like an old like computer looking thing, like what
Oh,
are
very,
like
very old. Do I
like a
remember what
box
computer?
style,
No.
like a
Yeah.
CD-ROM.
Yes. Yes. Uh,
Crazy.
it would have been like 95, 96, maybe 97.
Pre-internet? Did you have internet on that
Not,
computer?
yes, but it's like dial up, right? So like games were not like, these were games you played versus AIs. They were not current AIs, by the way, just bots.
That's right. We rebranded
Yeah.
the bots.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, those are like some of my earliest memories, but like really, really got into video games when my dad finally got me a Game Boy at the age of 10. I could play like Pokemon Red. Yeah.
What about analog games?
Growing up, I always wanted to get my parents to play analog games with me, and they have zero interest in games. So I forced them occasionally
Interesting.
to like play a Monopoly or something with me. I played a lot of chess with my grandfather
Me
growing
too.
up. Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah. But I actually didn't get into board games probably until like college, you know?
Yeah, for me, like chess with my grandpa is actually like a pretty formative thing, I guess. And like I still think back on that very like fondly and nostalgically. So it's yeah, I think that's awesome. Um, you know, Obviously jumping into the topics for today, we're going to be discussing how you got into games. Um, we're going to be talking a lot about sort of like what your journey was around certain titles that were influential, what those meant to you when you started designing, and yeah, just sort of moving into how to make good games and what people are missing and talk some theory. So that'll sort of be our structure. So let's get started. When did you know you wanted to start designing games, right? Because you're saying we didn't start playing a lot of analogs till college. So like
Yeah.
that's pretty late, like I think overall.
I mean, I played a lot of chess also in like college. I'm sorry, not college, in high school. It, I played the games that were available to me and that other people would play with me. And so like, generally speaking, that meant I played a lot of video games because you could play them by yourself and you could play them online as well. So I've just played a lot of video games. And then I actually did like an internship with Firaxis when I was
Sorry, titles for Access titles that I would know. Wow.
Civilization, Sid Meier.
I know that. I know that one. I know that one.
Okay. Civilization, XCOM. Like I was doing quality assurance for XCOM before it came out. So like that was
What did QA consist of?
quality assurance was playing the game a lot, reporting bugs that you found.
Yeah.
And honestly, QA is kind of somewhat thankless, but um, it's generally speaking considered to be like less skilled. But I think I was actually really good at it because effectively you're kind of like running mini experiments where you have a hypothesis about how something like how a bug or a crash or freeze came about, and then you try to reproduce it so that you can give that to a developer and say like, here are the steps to reproduce this bug. So that way, okay, my 2 hours as a high school student maybe saved a developer, the developer would get my report and maybe be able to recreate it within 3 minutes and then know, oh, this is what's causing this because this is, you know,
I
things
knew a
only froze
guy
up when
I
you
knew
use
a
a
guy who
grenade
did it for
launcher.
Bethesda,
Yeah.
and I think he would just like my understanding was he would just like play the same level over and over and over and over like for like hours, and that's just like
Yes.
the
Yeah.
job.
So I was doing it primarily, like doing it for the single player campaigns was the worst. Doing it for the multiplayer, that's where I had the most
Sounds good.
fun
Yeah.
because it was basically like a sandbox. And that's usually where you would find bugs and in the system that would come up in single player as well anyways, you know? But yeah, like that
So you
was
got an early internship with an awesome company. You said high
with an
school?
awesome company in high school, and I didn't know what I wanted to do like as a career. And I was like, you know what? These people that I'm like hanging out with at Firaxis, which now that I'm realizing it, they're like much older people than me, but still very nice and kind people. Um, I was like, I like these people. They're nerds. Like I can see myself working in an environment around these people. So I was like, okay, I could do video game industry. Like I'd be happy to do that. And so that's what I decided to like focus on in college. Now, the general issue with my with my premise at the time was that Firaxis, especially at that time, was one of the best places to work in all of Maryland. It's not just that it was a good video game company, it was also just generally a great company to work for, which
Started at
meant
the top.
start at the
It's all
top.
downhill from there.
And I didn't realize just how much worse the video game industry would be in relation to Firaxis, right?
Like, yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, like, you're like talking about it like this wholesome, welcoming place. All I've heard about is like misogynistic culture and like toxicity and long
Right.
hours. Like, you're making it
Yep.
sound like the freaking golden age over here. I'm like, wow, I've never heard that one before.
Yeah, for Axis there was respect. There were women, and I know that that sounds really stupid, but in
Yeah.
2009 they had a larger percentage of women than probably the rest of the industry did. Um, they had they had diversity. They had respect for their employees. It was primarily led by Sid Meier, and Sid Meier is just someone who wanted to make games and have fun and just generally a good person. So like, yeah, it was a good company. And like, I didn't know what a good or bad company looked like at the time because I was in high school. And now looking back and having, experienced other things in other industries, I was like, yeah, that's a good place. That was a good place to work.
So you went to uni after that and studied video game design?
Yeah, kind of. I was a literature major at MIT. So I technically have a Bachelor of Science in Liberal Arts. Um, yeah, basically like, so I was there in the early 2010s, and game design was not a major concept for like any real institution. I think that there was like DigiPen, I think at the time, as like the only place that was like, we will teach you how to make video games, or well, we have tracks into the video game industry. So I just was like, got into MIT. I was like, yeah, I guess I'll go to this very one of the best schools. Why would I not do that? And then they also happened to have this program that really spoke to me. It was called Comparative Media Studies, and it combined my interest of like movies and filmmaking and video editing, which I really enjoyed doing in high school, with video
Maybe we'll make you do some
games.
for fractals for fun.
It's been a while. It's been a minute. Also, I loved Final Cut Pro like that. I
I
loved
know.
using it. I
Yeah.
loved using it. And in 2010 or something, they like made this big push to like try to be, it was like Final Cut X. And you basically,
Subscription, SaaS.
No, it was before the subscription days. It was the next version, and they just tried to simplify everything, and it made it so it was like no longer a robust piece of software.
Yeah,
Um,
interesting.
yeah, I've heard good things about it now. I've so like that might have been a blip, but I haven't done video editing in a while.
So you were
Try.
working on all these things you found really interesting and
Yeah.
intersectional.
Yep.
And okay, so let's cut back to games. What are we doing with games during this period?
So I was taking every single game design or game related class in college. I
You take
effectively
the
like
poker
made.
class, the really famous
I
poker
actually didn't.
class.
I actually didn't take the poker class. No. Like I took. So there is the MIT Game Lab, uh, run by Philip Tan, that was kind of an academic research lab focused on video games. So a lot of the game classes were related to that. But like I also took a class taught by Chris Weaver, who was the head of Bethesda Studios, and he didn't live in Boston. He just literally like flew in to teach this one
I think he
class.
lives in Bethesda, if I had to guess.
I don't I don't think that he was with Bethesda. Like I think he
Uh,
was like done like I like he was with Bethesda in like the early days and ran it and everything, but he taught a class and it was we just called it story time with Weaver and it was great. It was such a great class. It was like I can't tell you what we learned, but it's one of those things where it's like elders, passing along the stories and you like remember some of the stories and the takeaways, but you can't say like this is the quantity like viable thing that we learned, right?
of course.
Yeah. But that was one class I took. I know a game development class where it was a project based course where you had to make a video game within the span of the class, right? With other people. So like I did collaborative works with other people. I did game jams while there because the MIT Game Lab did like hosted game jams. So effectively I was, just focused on like studies and just trying to get better at game design through these classes. And then as I was graduating, I was like, okay, I'd like to try to go into the video game industry, but I have no titles released, nothing like that.
I was gonna
So
ask, had you been developing through all this time, anything at all, or like what were you kind of doing?
I
Like,
didn't have, I mean, I was playing a lot of video games. That was one thing I was doing. I like to joke that I also
heck
majored
yeah,
in League of Legends, because
yeah.
yeah, yeah, is what it is. Um, so during this time, like I was making games, but they were small, confined projects focused on refining the skill set. It wasn't to put out into the world. So I had an idea that I wrote down for a game in my notebook in the summer, after my freshman year. And then I revisited that notebook in 2013. And then that game eventually became One Piece Pirate Poker. So a game that I'm currently like working on that I'm hoping will be able to get the One Piece license for. Um, but like the foundation of the game was came back to that idea and that nugget like that I had in 2010.
Okay, random game designer observation. Maybe you have a
Mm-hmm.
take on this. Why do you think every game designer wants to make a pirate game?
I didn't want to make a pirate game. I didn't start with a theme. I started with a mechanical hook. So I always start with mechanical hooks and take that to its limit. So this hook was you have a
We got
deck
a
of
name for
cards,
people like you.
like top
Bottom
bottom up
up, yeah,
designers.
bottom up
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
designers,
was
yeah,
like I
yeah,
was
yeah.
like, what kind of name are we referring to here? Yeah, bottom up. So I like this game, this One Piece Pirate Poker game. I started it by saying like I'm just going to make a game with a deck of cards. Like I'll allow myself to like double it, but I'm just going to keep my design space like nice and constrained, right? Like component space. So came up with I had two decks of cards, came up with this idea where you're battling over basically it was a lane battler before like lane battlers really popped off, but you're playing against another person and you were trying to like bluff them. So I came up with like a two-player bluffing game, right? Which is not like a particularly common thing, right? And it was all about
Yeah.
you're playing cards like face down and trying to get the other person, bait the other person to think that you played a higher number than you did, right? That's like kind of the core conceit of the game. And
Yeah,
so
understood.
so that I started that project in full on like 2013 after I'd already graduated, and then roughly finished like the core concept by like 2015, right?
When you say core concept, what do you like? What do you mean by that? Can you elaborate on what that consisted of?
I considered the game to be done by 2015. I had the rules done, the components done. I had actually considered doing Kickstarter myself, so I actually had artwork, um, like I commissioned artwork for it as well.
Heck
So the game
yeah.
was like basically done. Like I could have sent files to the printer to get to make the game at that time, um, and I just figured out that I really didn't want to. I'm cool with running a business, but I don't want to do a Kickstarter pretty much ever. I don't. I'm not good at marketing. I'm not good at like theming games, hence the Pirates theme, because it was the closest thing I could find that made any kind of sense. So instead, I started trying to pitch that to publishers instead.
Okay, so we're circa 2015 here. You're out of uni at this point. I don't quite know. Yep, you're out
Yeah,
of
yeah,
university. You got this game. You're going out. Um, you're like you had some art made.
yeah. So I had some art made for it. So like after graduating, I moved to Austin for a little bit. Very relevant in my history because that's where I discovered Netrunner. Right, this was right when Netrunner was coming around.
FFG.
FFG Netrunner, correct.
And were you
So
familiar with Garf's game before? The Garfster.
no, I wasn't familiar with. I wasn't familiar with ONR, original Netrunner.
Yeah.
Um, quick aside on the Garf, um, he has a fantastic game called The Great Dalmoody. So what?
Every time I bring up
What?
Garfield,
Yeah.
someone's got some like deep cut, got like King of Tokyo or just some like deep cut game
King
that
of
I've never.
Topia is not a deep cut. I'm
Uh,
so sorry.
Telemamundi, I think you said. Hopefully, I don't get copyright infringed for that. Is a deep cut.
The Great Dalmoody is a deep cut. It is. It's from the 90s. It's actually from around the ONR days.
Vampire: The
Um,
Eternal Struggle. Like I don't. He's got so many
I didn't
games.
know that Garfield made that one. I guess
I'm
I
pretty
should have
sure it
known
was the
that.
second title between Magic. Man, I'm gonna live Google search this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Vampire: Eternal Struggle maker
This is a Garfield game.
designer. Oh my god, am I gonna be? Oh my god, yeah, Richard Garfield. That was
Okay,
so close.
cool.
I was scared because I read co-designers alongside co-designers Robert Godey and L. Scott Johnson. Yeah, it was his second.
Okay, good. The other
So
Garfield game that I really like, besides Magic, I played plenty of Magic, by the way, in a little bit in high school and then in college, plenty, is Artifact. Artifact died too young. Way too young.
monetization.
Yeah, monetization and marketing with two things that I know that I'm bad at. So,
You and the
so yeah.
Garf.
So in like 2014, 2015, 2016, I was living broke artist life in Austin, Texas, working random odd jobs and working on my games and, toying with the idea of doing Kickstarter and all that jazz. And at that time, I was playing a lot of like a lot of just different games around the board game cafes because that was also the era where board game cafes were hot and everyone was like,
I love board game cafes.
"Me too." It does seem like they are terrible businesses, right? Or they are really hard to work. They're really hard to make work. But at that era, they were hot and it was so much fun to be able to. In
Yeah, not to
Austin,
out
I had,
ourselves, but
yeah,
lamenting the loss of our local board game cafe.
I mean,
True tragedy. That
like,
place went out of business recently.
like actually though,
Yeah, that place was great. It's
like,
really sad.
okay, currently we are genuinely lacking for third spaces. And at this time in my life, like the third spaces were abundant and it was great.
Yep. So we'll circle back on third
Yeah.
spaces later, no doubt. Um, so you're in Austin, you're making games. We get this pirate game because you built a game and then you're like, I'm gonna slap pirates on later because that makes some sense, some semblance of sense.
I
And then
promise
you
it makes sense. I'll let you finish,
and then you
but it
went
does
to
make
and
sense.
then you went to sell sheet publishers with your bottom up pirate game that makes some amount of sense. And what happened?
What happened? What happened is I'm still bad at selling my game, including two publishers. Um, the other thing that happened is one is wasn't the only title that I had. I had a different game that I called Tally Judo at the time.
And we're actually, do you mind like providing an overview of a sell sheet? Because I've never made one, to be honest, and you probably have.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. So sell sheets are literally like one page document that you give to a board game publisher to have them review your game and just basically like decide if they think it might be a fit for them or not. So it's generally speaking the very first step. It's like a pitch document, or I'm trying to think of other analogies and I can't really think of them at the moment. But
so you
effectively,
had sell sheets for the one game. I'm assuming when you were going to publishers, and then did you have one for the
yeah.
second title you're describing as well?
Yeah. So like I didn't fully understand how sell sheets worked and how the industry worked at the time. Um, so I was toying around with like I'd reach out to publishers here and there, but I didn't get any traction off of it. And then I was like, I'm tired of being broke. So then I started focusing on like a career. So like I got into IT and I moved to Boston at that time, and I started like making work my priority rather than doing these like game design projects. I still worked on them in the background. Um, but
Were you pitching publishers over this period while you were working on game design in the background, or that wasn't really a focus?
I
You were
would
just
say that
making because you love making.
I was making because I enjoyed making, and I I don't enjoy I don't enjoy making sell sheets. I still don't. I have to do one today, and I'm procrastinating it. Um,
No, you're recording a podcast. You don't have time. You gotta.
I mean, you're right. I don't, but like I could have done it earlier this morning, and I did some other things instead.
Uh,
I might have cut a new fractals version instead because I'd
maybe
rather make the game.
someone's got to do the hard work.
Yeah. So the actual answer here is that I didn't have enough industry knowledge. I didn't have enough self knowledge about how I worked and how efficient I was, and I didn't fully understand just how fertile of a time period it was and how easy it was to get signed and how that would go away soon. So
Oh,
2016, I
interesting.
had
You're
some,
saying there was like a particularly good period to get signed. I'm not really familiar with this. Can you tell me more about that
yeah.
specifically?
Yes. So in the mid 2010s, just like board game cafes, board games were booming and it was a growing business, and companies literally were not able, like they were just signing games left and right. They like the demand for games did not meet the supply.
What led to this? Like, I get a
Board
market boom,
it
but
is just straight up, honestly, it's a board game market boom. Like what led to board games going
yeah, the
big? And keep
blow.
in mind, this is before Wingspan, right? This is before Wingspan was released, so that was another boom later. But more board games just started being published in the United States, and I think part of it is that the people that grew up with games and video games and technology becoming more and more a large part of our lives, people were looking for ways of connecting with other people in person.
I just thought of a theory. Hear me out. Hear me out.
Hmm.
Maybe the settlers of Catan people started having families and kids
I mean,
on the Euro import wave.
I do think that's part of it, but the other thing is like this is a very US focused view, and it
Sure,
is
it was a global
also like
phenomena, though.
it's a global phenomenon, but also like if you look at Germany, the average German family buys 1 to 2 games a year. Maybe I think it actually might be slightly higher than that, but like you can almost guarantee that every single German family is going to buy the game of the year because it is a large part of their culture. The best game designers all okay. So this actually became around because of World War II, right? Where there were sanctions put on Germany, and the game designers at the time couldn't make games about war. So they made games about life, where we in the US had Risk, you know, a lot of what people now refer to as Ameritrash games. That like constraints actually breathe creativity, and these incredibly relatable experiences of being a farmer, having land, I don't know, like wanting to place tiles, all these different like tactile experiences. German designers were just infinitely better. So Catan, German design, Carcassonne, German design. One of my favorite games is Power Grid. Love Power Grid. Super cool game, German design. So yeah, all of these designs and all these designers are coming out of Germany, and Germany is like already in tune with board games by like 2000s. Yeah, of course. Like it was
Well,
just a
I don't
part of
know
their
if you know
culture.
this or not, but this is a fun fact.
Mhm.
Fantasy Flight Games,
Yeah.
their first thing before I think Twilight Imperium was their big first title, but
Okay.
prior to that, they actually started as a Euro games importer, which
Yeah, yeah,
apparently was
yeah.
not a good business. But that's what they were doing in the '90s,
No,
is they were like an early Euro games importer to the United
that's
States.
what most United States publishers started as. That's what Rio Grande started as, the makers of Dominion, right? Or the publishers, I guess I should say, of
And
Dominion.
Race for the Galaxy, which I've been
And
playing
Race
a
for the
lot of,
Galaxy, love Race for
huge
the
title.
Galaxy. Um, yeah, like so like Germany was just ahead, and then those games come into the US, brought into the US, right? American people, I guess we wouldn't, they have become game designers now, but like at the time, it's probably just like anyone else. They played some games. They were like, this is really cool. I want to like modify this, or I want to make something unique or different about it. And then you start making games yourself. So, a lot of the early industry people for board games in the United States were getting their start in 2005,
That's not that
2006.
long ago.
Exactly. That's my point.
You say
So like,
it's a nascent industry, and then those first wave of designers come out, and they, at least personally, like in my opinion, I think there's really been, and we could point to titles like Wingspan. One of my favorites to always reference, Everdell. I call it the great unification of the Ameritrash and the Euros,
okay.
where you have these, like, because you have these Euros, which are like deeply mechanical games,
Mm-hmm.
but then these American designers come in and really deeply unify the Ludo narrative, and weave it in a way that's deeply systematic, um, in a way that I think was less consumerized before. It was less publishable before in some ways, I guess.
I don't know if
Maybe
that
that's
fully.
maybe that's wrong.
I
That's
don't
my
know that
theory.
fully resonates with me, but it might just be some of the words that you're using, to be honest. Because like my, sorry, excuse me.
No, you're
Um,
good.
like when I think of, let's use Wingspan, right, as an example. Wingspan to me was the second boom, and it was. I don't think it has anything necessarily to do with like an American designer versus a German designer and what the sensibilities does are. I think it literally is just someone wanted to make a game about another part of life that they liked and that they had passion for, and they breathe that into a game, and that is at the time like revolutionary. Like it attracted a brand new audience, and in my opinion, and this has been my opinion since I was studying games academically in college, is that games are for everyone. There is no such thing as someone who is not a gamer. It's just they haven't found the right game yet.
There is a game for everyone,
There is a game and probably multiple games for everyone.
for sure.
Humans love play. Play is integral to the human experience. Honestly, it's
And other animals.
and yeah, most animals as well.
Yeah, my
Um,
my wife always says, animals are always either play motivated or food motivated at any given
yeah,
time. Us too.
yeah,
I like sleep sometimes too, but
it's true. I mean, I think that actually kind of directly relates to like intelligence, right? Not within humans. I just mean like um insects don't like I don't I actually don't 100% know this, but I don't think that insects have a concept of play, right? Invertebrates
no idea.
don't necessarily have this concept of play. Like, do snakes play? You know,
Maybe
like
with their food.
maybe, but like, cats, dogs, like like elephants, dolphins, like generally speaking,
Birds.
the smarter an animal gets, the more it actually is likely to use play as a learning mechanism, as an engagement mechanism. Like the smarter you get, the more you actually need play, right?
Interesting. Yeah,
Um,
agree.
so humans being the smartest animals on Earth, I think that's just like factually true, right? Like,
Tangential fun fact
yeah,
on this that I learned
huh,
recently. So dolphin communications,
yes,
I don't know if you know this or not, like we communicate using language,
yeah,
which is lossy. Like everything I say, you're not going to 100% understand the ideas necessarily.
yeah,
It,
that's true.
y-
Yep,
right, like
yeah,
language is
yeah,
lossy.
yeah.
Dolphins have like the way their brains work with the echolocation and stuff.
Yeah.
They can literally like project thoughts into each other's heads because they just use the sound and they just like get the exact image that's in the other dolphin's mind. I know, isn't that a trip?
Oh, that is fucking crazy.
Yeah, I know. So their communication is actually much like far superior to ours
Right.
in that context, right?
So
Because like
that's actually
we
the
spend so
reason
much
why.
time like talking through
Yeah,
stuff to get a consensus on what we're talking about.
that's actually the reason why I like somewhat tripped up on like humans are the smartest planets on, or the smartest things on Earth, right? Because evolution, I think it's currently true, but like evolutionarily, the only reason why humans, why we are where we are today, is because of like fire and fucking digits,
Tools, tools,
right? I mean, it's tools, yes. Is
technology.
I would say yes, it is tools, but most importantly, it is fire, so we could cook food, right? Because cooking food and changing, like literally changing the food we eat, like I think pretty sure that we are one of the only species. I think some things actually ferment things by like putting things into the ground and then ferment them. I think some
Interesting.
animals do that, but like we're one of the very few species to change our food and think like we prepare our food unlike any other animals,
Yeah.
right? And that changes the energy density, and then that
Yep.
changes how much you can feed your brain, right?
For sure.
So, anyways, dolphins and octopi, if they weren't stuck in water and could build fires, at some point evolutionarily,
Maybe they were.
maybe could
Maybe
have competed, and we could have had a multi-species Earth, dominated Earth, or whatever. You get what I point. This is all entire
that's all above my pay grade. I don't know.
conjecture. Yeah, yeah. This
Dude.
is entire. We've gone deep
Get a
into the rabbit hole here.
get a
Oh
biologist on
no.
here.
Yeah, yeah.
They do
Um.
games.
So yeah, we make video
The
games.
zero player game of life.
This, sure,
I think that was a
sure.
biology game.
Sure. So, bringing us back a little bit
To games.
To games, and to how Wingspan changed a lot of things, and how games in general just were evolving over time, and they're still currently evolving. But in 2016 in particular, I was given some advice by the maker of Laser Riders, Nicole, who is an awesome person, by the way. She was like, she had played my game Tally Judo. This might have even been 2015. It was 2015 or 2016. I don't remember.
Tally Jude. Like, oh
It
my
was a
God. That like Tally Ho
terrible
and
name.
Jude. Wow.
It was a terrible name. I'm so bad at
Wow.
naming things.
That's
Okay.
great. I really like that.
Sure. Totally.
Like I would never buy a box that says it on it. No offense. But
no, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. I'm terrible.
Yeah, but it seems
at
like it'd
this.
be good for a sell sheet because like it's punny enough that you
It
feel
would have
like
been
some
fine.
random
Yes.
publisher would read it and be like, wow, that's terrible. Like, let me look
It
at this.
probably was good enough to pitch. And someone basically, so Nicole came up to me. I submitted to Boston Festival of Independent Games, and she was the one of the judges. She was the one that had it last, and she was like, "You should pitch this to publishers. This is pitch
Sure.
ready." And I went, "I don't think the game is done yet." Right? I was like, "I don't think the game is done yet. I think it needs more work. Like, I'm not particularly happy with it." What I didn't realize at the time was, one, I should have just done it because of where the industry was at, but two, that's the point of a developer. They take your game that's like 90% of the way there, and they actually get it to like as good as it can be given the timelines and the constraints.
So do publishers have developers on staff
Yes.
beyond
Yes.
really? Like any major publisher has developers beyond the designer who submits.
Oh, for sure. Like they may not be on
like
staff.
Capstone
They might have
yeah,
contracts, but like,
sure.
yeah, all of them use developers. Maybe they have either a developer in house Or if they're small, they themselves are the developer and they don't even, they,
Why do you think
you know what
it's
I
so
mean?
important to bring in a second set of developer designer eyes onto
Great
every
question.
project that, yeah.
Great question. I think what makes great games is a combination of three things. I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but one, time. This is on two axes. You need a lot of time to actually play test your game, right? You need to like over many, 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 many iterations, go through the loop of playtesting, analysis, improvement, new iteration. You just have to run that loop a whole bunch of times. That's really important. You can do that on a small cycle though. You could like game jams. This is what happens. You just iterate like very, very rapidly. But I think that it's also important. The greatest games also happen on a very long time scale because we are pattern recognition machines and we need to sleep on things. We
Define
need
long,
to
other than
month,
long enough,
months, you
months.
know,
So,
months. Yeah.
and we'll look back on this in a second. I want to get to your third point first.
Okay. So
So we
there's,
got,
so that was the first one is time.
oh, okay. So, okay. Then we can pause here. We can pause here for a sec. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Because I think another thing a lot of designers do, maybe even people who are going to listen to this, is work on the same project for 6 years. You're not saying work on the same project for 6 years here.
I see what you mean. Yeah, that's a good point. It depends on some projects will take 6 years, and that's okay, and that's what they should take because they're that big of projects. Generally speaking, the designers that I see that are, excuse me, whew, very burpy today. The designers that I see working on the same project that are not necessarily making the progress that I imagined they would make if they were doing very rapid iteration on stuff usually are really focused on some vision that may or may not actually work as like a core conceit. So you do need to know when to just like let go of things. So like that's the reason why something might take like 5 or 6 years. The other thing is like a lot of designers, newer designers, will take on really large projects as their first design. Right? I was taking on
Like, can you
projects.
give an example of like really large?
Um,
Like, what makes a project large or
a
small, actually?
4X game. I would say any game with a large number of components, a large number of unique components, like Arc Nova. You have like 200, 250 cards or whatever, unique cards in that thing. That's a large project. Like, how long does it take you to get to a new version?
Was that guy's first project? What's his name?
I don't
Matthias
know.
Wiggle? It may
I don't
have
know.
been.
But here's the thing is that it might have been his first, uh, it may have been his first published project, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that is how he developed and refined his design skills.
He also did it in only a year, apparently. It was his first published title, but he did do it in a year, which is,
It's very impressive. But I
yeah.
mean, that person was, I don't know. I'm going to assume that he was doing a lot of like a lot of rapid iteration or a lot of prototyping on that. And the thing is, it probably took them it sounds like he worked on it for a year. I don't know if that was just the design phase, if that was the design and development
No, that
phase.
was the design phase before it went to the publisher. Yeah.
Okay. That's, yeah, I would say that that's a very aggressive timeline for that kind of size of game. Um, Other games, I don't know, a game that takes like anything that takes more than an hour, something that has a large number of different components, something that has a large number of the same component. These are all games that they're complicated, they're
Let's
intricate.
talk fractals. How long? So
Okay.
TCGs or ECGs? I know some people who are listening to this are making
Okay.
TCGs and ECGs.
Yeah.
Where would you classify those in like how long they should be in the design phase for realistically while we're on
It
this?
depends on your game system because if you have a game system that's comparable to, let's say, Magic, then you're standing on the shoulders of giants. You get to leverage all of that information, all of the years and years of like intuition that you've built up from playing Magic into this game. And that's what I mean by games take a long time. You need the months and months or years in some cases because you need to build up that like understanding to truly recognize the patterns of what's happening in a playtest to then make appropriate analysis and conclusions of what's truly happening in your system and if that meets your design goals or not. Going back to the actual ECG example here, I was working on a collectible card game. Unsurprising, in 2016, I had a co-designer. I was working on a thing for 4 years. I'd already played Netrunner. I'd already played Magic. Worked on a bunch of different things. But we were doing, and it was asynchronous, not asynchronous.
Asymmetric.
Thank you. It was an asymmetric 2-player game. Also happened to be pirate themed, not because I like pirates.
Every game design, it's not you, and I'm sure every other game designer is like, I don't like pirates either, but everyone makes a pirate themed game. It's everyone's first and second and third title.
So that one was also a lane battler, and I think that there's something specifically about pirates, boats, and lane battlers where that worked out, but also the original.
Shoot, do we have to redo the narrative for Fractals?
Oh my god.
We're
space pirates. We're space pirates. It's fine.
There's no pirates. There's no pirates.
There's no pirate.
Yeah.
What if there's a 5th faction in the future? 5th faction that we introduce is the pirate faction.
Mermails.
Mermail pirates?
There's mermails.
Okay.
Spacefaring
mermen. Okay. Oh my god.
I don't know. Giant Atlantis floating around. Seems cool.
Are most of your guests like this? Is this how the podcast usually goes?
No.
I'm glad. I'm glad that I can be a.
No, we don't have much more structured conversations.
This is what it's like when 2 ADD people have a conversation. Anyway, so there were 3 things. Time.
Yes, time. Oh, one more thing on this. Are you recommending most first-time game designers make smaller games? Because the Radlands guy says,
for the love of all that is holy, yes. You should make smaller games. You should start with nice, concise projects that you can make rapid iterations on, and you can learn from those. Because
why? To notch successes or just for the learning?
For the learnings. Like, I studied game design after doing quality assurance and hanging around a very grade A class of game developers. I studied games for like 4 years. I made my own different solo projects. It was probably 10 different projects at the time. I wrote rules for different things and figured out how I like to write rules for games and what works and what doesn't work. I blind play tested things. I then started working on my own, projects independently. And I can look back and go, oh, now with no joke, 10 years of experience, not currently, but we're going to skip forward a tiny bit. In 2022, I came up with, after pitching all of my games and getting no hits and no interest, I came up with a new concept. I got frustrated and I went, I am making games that are good and have interesting mechanical hooks, but they're not great. They're not perfect. They're not like a game that a mechanical hook that's so good that it's going to sell it on its own. And it's not a good product, right? So I'm going to start with a name because I have done this for, at that point, over 10 years, was tired of not having a game out in the world that people were playing, right? So I came up with a name inspired by my cats. I was like, you know what? I have a cat. And if it was up to her, she would eat as much food as she would want. She'd be a fat cat. I'm going to work on a game called Fat Cat.
So you pivoted to a top-down methodology.
I would even go further than that and say a product methodology.
Audience first. Exactly.
I'm going to build a game that my wife would enjoy, that would get her excited to play a game, which is she'll play games, but she, generally speaking, is only very interested in, she'll occasionally ask me to play specific games rather than me asking her to play games. And that's going to come from a specific theme or aesthetic usually.
And so I know you know this, Ben, but my wife only plays Everdell and Arc Nova and and we go to game conventions together and she's like, look at Animal Box. She's like, and I'm like, okay.
Yep. So
that's not true though. There's I think it's a capstone title called Tea Party or something that looks like this super dense Euro, and the art was good enough on that. So maybe tea is okay, but it has to be almost borderline special interest topic to be
I wouldn't call it special interest topic. This is the thing about nature games, and they are really popular right now. In general, is that like nature is compelling. Nature is like incredibly fruitful and like a huge well of interesting ideas and mechanics and themes. And farming has been way overdone because of, again, pulling back to our Germany conversation,
I've
right?
never
And
played
game
a
design.
Gorilla. Do I need to play that game?
I think it's watch like a review of it, probably
Yeah.
like watch like a quick playthrough. I don't think you need to physically play it yourself. But it's important to know the history and understand the history of it, and people still enjoy and play that game to this date.
Yeah.
So that's relevant. But like, okay, we're gonna throw in Jamie Stegmaier in general and Stonemaier Games. What was his first game? It was Viticulture. It was about wine. It was about wine farming.
Scythe.
Um, Less relevant because Scythe is more dudes on a map, more aesthetic, but Viticulture was a new theme roughly for the time. It was a new take on themes in games, and that's one of the reasons. Besides Jamin Stegmaier's genius marketing and general like brilliance with Kickstarters for that era, like that's one of the reasons why the game was successful is because it brought in a new audience. It was like people who like board games already, but who also have an interest in wine and winemaking and all that kind of stuff. They're like, oh, I this board game is simple enough for me. They maybe don't know of any other game, and then that brings them into the hobby in general. Um, so yeah, I started with a name, Fat Cat, and that eventually. So I developed that game. The design probably took about 2 years. I was working on other things as well, and I would say like it was really like 1 year to get the design to where I liked it, and then an additional year of trying to solve specific problems within the system that I did not solve,
Let's call that
and
development.
then
Like, would it be fair to call that process development?
I think that it was in the development phase, and part of that year was I was working on other projects because I thought the game was pretty done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it took me another year to get it signed, right? And to pitch it around. And I started pitching it around to people. And then I found Pinkhawk Games, great company, who it just happened to work out and match. Emily had a cat game that she knew that she wanted to be the owner of and to do it herself rather than publish through another publisher. And so she made her own publishing company. She came out with Pirates of the High Teas first. And now she has this other game, Good Kitties. And she was like, it's a really big, chunky game. And she wanted to pair it a small box with a large box in this Kickstarter. And so she was like, I would actually be interested in your game if you'd like. And she was
And so
someone
Fat
who
Cats was your first design of this era. This was your first like name game, if you
that
will.
was that was like the first time I sat down and I went, I want an audience. I am tired of making games and not having them out in the world for people to actually enjoy.
And so now you have like a pipeline of these probably. I'm assuming you've like worked on more since then, or
I'm yeah, I have other games that I'm working on and I'm working to getting publishing, trying to get published, but you know, as it turns out, I am still bad at marketing, still bad at it.
even when even when you started with the audience in mind, it didn't fix the core issue, which is
Yeah, I think that that's a good way of phrasing it. It's like it helps shore up one of my weaknesses a little bit, but I'm still bad at presenting these games in a way that publishers would look at it and go, oh, I understand how this fits into my product line. And I actually am usually pretty good at figuring out how it would fit into their product line, but that's not my role in this in this exchange, right? It's I need to convince them on a very 15-minute window and a 20-minute window. Hey, this
a
is
one page document.
on a 1-page document in an email and a 2-minute video. Hey, this is why you should be potentially interested in this game, right?
Okay. So I want to blast through. So we have time. Games take time. Games take
Okay, games take time. Great games are made through challenging your assumptions and ideas, and usually that means and having a different perspective. And so you can do that by yourself if you have a lot of time, but more often than not, you need collaborators, which is getting back to the thing that spawned this question, which is hilarious. Um,
What's number three? Well, so we don't get
Let's see if
mix it.
let's see if I remember. Time, collaborators. Oh, vision. That is the last thing that makes a great game. Mm.
It's like so intangible. Um,
It it is, but like from my experience so far, you've seen I've made some games that were good because they explored this mechanical hook because I was interested in being a designer who was trying out a new mechanic and trying out like these new concepts or whatever, right? And that doesn't necessarily make for a good product or a good game. And the truth of the matter is that everyone's attention like is so split at the moment between there's so many different things you could be doing, right? Obviously right now, you have to find a way to make it actually worth people's time. And so that can come in a theme, that can come in an aesthetic, it can come in world building, it could come in gameplay, it could come in all of those different aspects. But realistically, the answer is why are you making games? Right? What are you doing? Like, why are you making a game? If you're making a game that you want to play with your friends, you can do that. It doesn't need to have pretty artwork. It could have pretty artwork. You could commission your own artwork for your game. You can make your dream game if you want that's just for you. But I do not want to make games for myself. I help make Netrunner, and that is a game for me. So I do part of that.
and we'll get
But
to that soon. Don't worry.
yeah. But I want to make games that have impacts on other people's lives because I think the games are genuinely, I'm not going to say life-saving, make life worth living, you know?
Yeah, I think it's
Like,
crazy that a video game studio of like 300 or 400 people can create just like millions and millions and millions of hours of joy for
yeah,
people off of single
exactly.
titles. It's like scalable joy.
Exactly.
It's really it's really
Exactly.
something.
Yeah.
And
And like,
it's value creative. Like you're doing something that's
yes.
valuable.
Yes. I
And
had a little girl who was probably 8 or 9 years old or something come up to the booth, the Pink Hawk Games booth at Origins this year and play Super Chonk. So Fat Cat got renamed to Super Chonk during development.
didn't make it out.
Um, huh?
Maybe Tally
Fat Cat
Hold'em
was
will make it out.
Fat Cat was a little generic, right? Like it wasn't like Super Chonk
Uh,
is like a distinct is like a more distinct name.
for
You
sure.
know that if you search Super Chonk, you're gonna find it, right? So I had this girl come up and just like had genuine excitement to play the game. She learned how to play and she was just so happy to like be eating food and taking food and she just really enjoyed it and she was like I would like to get this game whenever like it comes out. That's not what she said, but like that's effectively what it was. And the father that was there was like, okay, well, we're definitely going to have to get this game. He didn't seem particularly excited about the game, necessarily bought in. But what I imagined in the future was that he would get to spend quality time with his daughter in such an excited state. And like, I don't know how you can beat that in life, you know? I don't
Yeah.
know how you can literally get a higher high than something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm here for that. I think
Yeah.
I think your three bullet points of what it takes to make a great design super reasonable. I think we've done a good job sort of hitting reasoning on each of those. Vision, I feel like vision can make up for a lot of one and two in terms of making something good. And by good, I mean, sorry, let me clarify. I mean, if you want to make something marketable, I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of games with vision get bought even if they lack the actual great gameplay. Interestingly,
Right. And I was saying making a great game, not a good game, a great game.
understood.
Not a good product, not a great product, a great game, right?
Yes.
Um and great games are probably going to succeed as products, to be honest.
Yeah. I
Right?
mean, one thing I think about is that like if your game is good enough, people are gonna go bring their friends to play it with them.
Yeah.
So, but I think being that good is such a crazy bar to clear. Like
It's
such an
it's
unbelievably
it's
hard
incredibly hard.
hurdle.
And you know what? Knizia has some misses that are good. right? They're good. They're interesting game concepts that had a unique idea and pitch to them, and they got picked up by a publisher, and someone probably took it to its limit. And that's I've made games like that, right? Where it's like they're good, but they're not necessarily great. And so even the best game designers, you're not going to bat 100. It's just not how it works, right?
Even the Garfster.
Even the Garfster, even the Garfster. I part of it is also time. Like the Great Down Moody would not work today, but God, is that such a clean design? I love it so much. Anyways,
So speaking of the greats, speaking of the Garfster, I know a guy who always said, Netrunner, it was Garfield's third work. He got it in 3, is what I've heard said of the game. Um, let's talk Netrunner. How'd you get involved? And for anyone who doesn't know, Ben Safer is I'll just say, is the lead developer now for NSG, Null Signal Games, Netrunner.
yep,
Null Signal Games is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the continued operation and survival of Netrunner. They do a ton of great work. They bring lots of joy to lots of people with an army of volunteers, miraculously. Um,
yep.
and Ben is very involved with the leadership team and all sorts of other stuff there. So with that overview in mind, how'd you get started there?
Sure. So a game design friend of mine, Tony Tran, who has a game called Pressed that's coming out that I did development work for. It's I think that has the potential of being a great game.
It's the flower game.
It's the flower game. I think it's so close to being great. I like we'll have to see how it works in like how it actually comes out, because I was playtesting with other things. But like it's so close. I'm pretty sure it. I don't know.
I want to hear the
It might
Netrunner
be
stuff,
great.
but like close commentary on this, like while we're
Yes.
here. I feel like great requires ludonarrative. We talk about ludonarrative a lot today, I guess. So like you need the art final and everything final to really like get
Yeah,
the swell.
exactly.
It doesn't work otherwise.
You need to have the full experience be there, right?
Yeah.
You just need to have the full experience. Yeah.
Anyways, so Netrunner, Tony Tran.
So Netrunner, my game design friend Tony Tran, like basically was like, hey, Null Signal Games is like looking for a new design lead. This was back in 2023. You should apply. And I went, yeah, okay. I knew that Null Signal Games existed.
Were you still playing actively at this point? No.
No. I left the game when I moved to Boston. I started focusing on my career. I left Netrunner, and I knew that I would come back at some point. I was just like, I'm going to focus on my career. I don't have the scene that I had when I was in Austin, right? So like,
does Austin still have a robust scene
to the game? What, Austin?
Does Austin still have a robust scene to this day?
I don't know. I don't know. I know that there's people in like Dallas Fort Worth for sure. Because there's always people in Dallas Fort Worth for card games, it seems. But yeah, like I think Austin, I don't know, like we had people at the heyday, like 34 people coming out for like a local night. Yeah, it was great. I had so much fun.
We got 8 last night locally. We were pretty thrilled about that. That's a great night.
That felt like a lot. It felt like a lot. Yeah,
it was a lot.
Great.
I know.
Yeah. So 2023, Tony sends me this job posting, and I was at a point where I was like, I think that I could confidently be the lead game designer for this game. Like, I think that I could actually do that. I had worked on 2 different card games at this point, my own solo project, and then did paid development work for a different digital CCG that probably not going to see the light of day. Sometimes you work. Yeah, that's what happens.
Digital games are so expensive assets wise too, compared to
they are. And like
analog.
This is just what happens like when you're like in the video game industry, right? You might have someone who like career, like they're working on the same game for like 10 years and it gets canceled and it never comes out. It's like,
I think it happens a lot with like TV too, is my understanding. Like people like produce like millions of pilots and like they just never get picked up, but they keep getting paid to make pilots for like decades. Like,
yeah. Anyways, so I worked on different games. I was confident enough that like through my experience, I would be able to like basically be a design lead, but also a team lead as well, because my career was management. I got fast tracked into like middle management, and I was very good at working in ambiguous contexts with different kinds of management and like making sure that things got done. And so I was like, I could definitely do this. So I applied for that, and the it turned out that the person who was helping with recruitment was an old metamate from Baltimore. So we kind of knew each other already.
I
And
don't know that term.
metamate, like someone like we are metamates. We are in the same meta. So we are mates from the meta.
Hmm. Nope. Okay.
Anyways,
Anyway.
so so the person doing the recruitment was a metamate, so we already knew each other and was like, oh hey, how are you doing? Good to catch up with you, like all this other stuff. And you know, on my resume stack at that point, I was pretty well qualified. A lot of the people that volunteer for NSG are there from Netrunner. It's not necessarily that they were game designers and then came into it, right? So being a game designer that also had a lot of experience with Netrunner, I was a pretty qualified candidate.
You had the design
But
chops.
I had the design chops, I had the design chops, and the Netrunner knowledge, because you need both. And they filled the position internally, right? And I was like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. Like, of course, like not offended at all. But they were like, we do have a position open on the development team if you would like to join the development team. And I went, okay, what exactly does the development team do here? Because I wasn't aware that there was even a development team. They told me what it did, and there was like, oh yeah, that fits my skill set even better. Let's do that.
Quick aside. I feel like nonprofits have like so many additional teams because they need additional bodies because it's so hard to get people like laser focused on stuff. So they need to organize like deeper organizational structures.
I think that is true for the volunteers. Like we just need more people because, you're
They're going to
not
do 10 hours, not 40 because
exactly. And
not
then
their
like
job.
you need way more than, I mean, 4x is not the correct actual number here, but you need more than like double the amount of people that you would normally need, not just because of time, but because like, okay, people need to take breaks, so you need to have, um, what's the right not overlap, backup contingencies. Basically, you don't want, if two people need to take vacation at the same time, right? You don't want to be down. Like, if you have, I'm going to use a IT help desk example because this is where a lot of my theories for this comes from. But let's say that you have an IT help desk that operates with 4 employees normally, right? Because of the way that vacations work and just general people's like skill and everything works, you want 5 people, because at a certain point, if someone gets 20 days of vacations and you need 4 people to actually be meeting the needs.
Wait, or hear me out. Hear me out.
What?
One generative AI help menu. Anyway. So anyway, you guys need buffer.
So yes, you need buffer, of course. So we have 8 members of our dev team right now, but when I joined, we were 2 people. And one of those people was heavily burnt out. So I joined at a very interesting time, and I quickly basically like helped with a lot of leadership things and organizational things. And then I basically helped build out the dev team. So I did all the recruitment for it and was like, these are the people that I want to do. Like, there are some people in playtest that I was like, this person is really smart and thinks, like, is already the way they're framing feedback. It feels like they are a game designer. They don't know it, but they are. Let's pull them in to get us some assistance right away.
And can you differentiate for me between roles and responsibilities between dev and design at
Yeah, for sure.
NSG?
So at NSG, the design team is responsible for coming up with new card concepts and new ideas. So for a new set, the development team handles all playtesting, refinement, and numbers. So what will typically happen is the design team will hand off a set to us. We then have a robust playtesting process and robust playtesting Discord with it is hundreds of people, but like, let's say like 50 or so, like very active playtesters that are running games very consistently. And the dev team basically creates a whole bunch of different iterations and does the rapid iteration thing. Sometimes that means completely redesigning cards and coming up with cards from scratch. Sometimes that's we don't even need to touch the card because design gave us a gem, right? Let's be real here. Like, just in game design, it's rare that you just put something out into the world into playtest and it just works. So there's far more frequently, us refining cards and then going through a whole bunch of different versions than that. But,
So is dev the one rapidly iterating after design is handed off design?
yes.
Is that a
Yes.
fair way to say it? And then playtest is the functionary that gives you the data.
Correct.
The dev needs to do their work.
Correct. And my expectations for our developers is that we also do playtesting ourselves. Like, I think you need to, eat
Yeah, of course.
the dog food, so to speak, right?
Inconsequential political question about NSG. You can defer this one if you want, but like, does design get final sign off after dev if you guys
No,
make card changes?
absolutely not. So that was something that yes. So that was something that was during my early tenure unclear, ambiguous, right?
Yeah.
And genuinely caused problems.
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Not just too many cooks in the kitchen, but what I said where about the eating the dog food thing. At a certain point in the development process, you become the subject matter expert. You understand the card, you understand the environment. It doesn't happen right away. It takes that months and months and months of understanding and recognizing patterns. It takes the months of seeing different cards in their different shapes. And at that point, you are now the subject matter expert, no longer the designer. And what that means is that design has to be hands off at a certain point in the process and just go, we trust the dev team to see our vision through the best that we can. And that's also how it should work in board games. So,
and one thing I think I've learned a lot from you, by the way, is also that like design and dev are like doing very functionally different things, and that like,
yes,
like you'll say to me, about cards and fractals, like, this is a good design, as in like this, like, in our game, let's just say there's a card that can like sort of attack or block anywhere, is the example I'm thinking of. And you're like, this just does this, and this is a card that should exist.
yes.
And design is asking questions like what effects should exist and why, it seems like, where dev is more like, is this fair? Is this reasonable?
Correct. If this effect is going to exist in the game, what is the best form for it? What are the best numbers for it?
Have you ever vetoed a design because it was just too
so many
egregious?
Times. So many times.
There are some design stuff that just can't come out.
Of course. But like, that is one of the good things about having a separate design team from a development team, because they can be truly unleashed.
Yeah,
right?
As much zany or...
Exactly. They can come up with the wackiest concepts. And this is one of the reasons why working at NSG has actually helped me understand that I'm a better developer than I am designer, because my brain does not go to the crazy, wacky concepts. My brain goes, how do I make this work? How do I fit it in? And if I can't make it work, then the answer is it cannot exist, right? It's that simple. And it's okay for it to not exist. And I don't want them to stop having these crazy grand ideas, because
it sounds a lot like game design in the same sort of way, that like you should be making all these zany ideas and like crossing off like, I don't know, 60% of them.
Exactly. It's all the same. It's all game design, just different disciplines and different focuses. And this is where NSG we have a built-in vision, right? We had that from the beginning. Great. It's already great. Great game system. It's really great, right? Our sets take like 2 years. We give them a lot of time to cook.
Wow.
It's 2 years between release. I like about 8 to 9 months of playtesting.
Yeah, but design is starting that thing. Like design right now is working on 2028.
I don't know if we've released
they should be working on
information publicly.
Yeah, but you get what I'm saying. Like their roadmap and their pipeline is projecting out a ways, whatever that.
Yes, it is, and it means that they cannot be like, we get to be really close to the game, if that makes sense. Where the current meta and the current set of cards and what they're doing in the game, we can take that information and apply it to what we're doing right now, because it's the next set that's going to come out. Design can't do that, because the next sets that are going to come out is currently changing so much that it might even be unrecognizable to what they originally remembered.
And you recently got a promotion of some sort. Are you now running design as well at the same time?
I'm not running design. So I'm just the lead. I'm the head of development that was announced recently. I've been doing leadership
Congrats.
responsibilities. Thank you.
Yeah.
I've been doing leadership responsibilities and a lot of what I have been doing for like years. But
So you're now head of the development practice, which includes the dev team and
correct,
playtest
correct. And
and
so basically,
SBT, which for people who don't know is like
I am a part of
competitive.
the live design team that does the balance updates as well. Yes, but that's not because of development. I just literally have two hats.
Got it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see how long I can maintain having two hats that are this large. But yeah, um, where were we?
We were talking about development,
Right,
um,
and the
and
difference
basically like
between
yeah,
design. So in our card game environment, in Netrunner, you have game design that's looking far in the future and about what the direction of the game and where it should go. You have game development, which is executing that vision and figuring out how to make it work sustainably. And then you have the balance team, which is effectively live design. So the team that's saying, here's what the environment is, here's how it's going. I promise you that when you release a game, it's always going to be different than what gets play tested and what comes up in playtest. It's going to happen every single time. It's incredibly well documented phenomena. Recommend people check out different instances of like Riot Games talks, like GDC talks and stuff, because they genuinely have the longest standing like they have the largest player base around the world, and they openly give talks about how they think about
oh, I think I
live
remember
balance
one
and
where they're
trends.
talking about like live balance on like pro picks and how like
Yeah.
Aurelia is just like completely devastating versus other champions because of kit and how they had to like balance
Yep.
around that in like set four. Like I think they gave a
Riot
really long spiel on
Riot
this one time. It was good.
Games, yeah, Riot Games scale gives us the most interesting case studies in the world for what it means to have a lifestyle game, a competitive lifestyle game, and what happens over a very long period of time. What trends can you pick up when
Which is
you
the
design a
complete
specific
inability to
way?
get it right on a long time horizon
Correct.
and a somewhat ability on a medium. No, just
You can
short.
have good educated guesses, but
But
like
it's mostly like fully reactive design cycles or close to,
it's always best effort.
or sorry, balance.
It's
Ah,
effectively best effort, right? Um, like you, I think that the best way of making for lifestyle continuously release, new content lifestyle games is you need to have a really, really good head of development or design or balance or whatever who's really into with the game, who really understands things, and then is also a really good designer so that they could predict like trends and account for like specific ranges. So I'll give you an example. Um, there is I should probably give an example that has already released. What is a good example? Oh, Clean Getaway. Great. That's a great one. So there's a card in Netrunner called Clean Getaway. And what? In development, when it was in development, it's a basic economy card. So it gives credits. And for those who are in the know, it also starts a run. And economy cards in Netrunners have two very important numbers to them: their cost and then their actual output. So you can increase the cost and keep the net gain the same. And that changes the texture of the card. So, for example, the classic card, Sure Gamble or Hedge Fund, costs 5 credits to play and gains you 9 credits for a net of 4 credits total. That is a very different card than a card that costs 10 credits to play and nets you 14. Or gets you 14, nets you 4, because the threshold of credits you need to be at is now much higher. So it plays very different in the texture of the game. If you haven't played Netrunner, you're just gonna have to take my word for it. So Clean Getaway was a card that cost 2 in playtesting for a very long time. And it was definitely feeling like it was above curve, but we weren't sure how far above curve it was. And because we knew that our playtest data could not be relied on entirely, we had to make a judgment call on what we thought the correct cost for the card would be in the long term.
how
Not just
close were
for
you
this
guys to
set.
shipping it at two?
I don't know, like 30%, I would say.
Okay, so it wasn't going to be like a super likely outcome, but it was deeply considered.
It, yeah, it was something that if we had less time, it might have ended up happening, right?
Interesting.
Usually the cards in Netrunner that like are half baked or like they feel like they have a wrong number or something like that, they weren't in playtesting for long enough. That's usually what happens.
And what's long enough?
So many people ask me this, right? Previous heads of production asked me this question while making Netrunner.
I know the answer, and long enough that you get it right.
Long enough to get it right. Yes, that's correct. You don't. It's not just nebulous have a deadline. It's you should set a deadline that you think is achievable, and then do periodic updates to say, do I think I'm going to hit this deadline or not? Right?
So like you
There's
know this though, like for fractals, right? We're in the middle of a production sprint right now.
yep,
Like we're just pushing. Like
yep,
sure you have to do that for Netrunner too,
yep.
but you need to be oriented around deadlines because otherwise nothing ever gets out because you could spend all day looking at that set for the rest of forever and you probably still wouldn't have good
Correct.
analysis.
There's a really great saying in both video game and board game industry where it's just games are not finished; they're just released or they're published, which is just true. The thing is, you can actually, if you spend on work, if you spend too much time on a game, you can make it worse. Because what happens is and this is one of the other reasons why it's really important to work with other people, have co-designers, have playtesters, challenge your own assumptions, because you can eventually be looking at something for just too long. You didn't understand, like, you get lost in the sauce. You overthink the problem, right?
Yeah, I was having a funny conversation about this with a local last night in Netrunner because he was like, "Oh, you're like designing a game. You must be too busy to play other games." And I was like, "No, actually, I feel like I have to like now play more games on top of the game because if I just sit here and stare at this game, I'm just gonna like freaking not
Yep.
have anything useful. I need to be playing more in different titles. So now I'm consuming a lot more games than I was previous because I used to just like play a game at a time,
Right.
hyperfixate on that game, and then move to another title. But that's not really an option. I think in the same way,
Yeah.
you need to be doing different stuff and flexing your brain differently, or you're gonna get caught in that sort
Yes.
of.
One of my gigantic red flags for when I meet new designers is if I mention a game that's incredibly well known and is similar to their game, and they're like, I haven't heard of it. And I'm like,
Yeah, my favorite one
not a
recently
good
was
sign.
my favorite one recently was I've heard of it and I don't want to play it because I don't want it to influence mine. And I was just like, okay, like
I
whatever.
I know a
Oh,
couple people that have that opinion. I don't agree with it personally. I understand where they're coming from. I do think it's incorrect, but I think
that's like saying I'm going to drive blindfolded because seeing the road would be too much of an advantage or something. Like I don't.
I think here's the thing. I think that there are counterexamples. So Balatro actually did this. The maker of Balatro specifically avoided playing like Slay the Spire because they didn't want to get influenced by Slay the Spire. And
But
then
they must
played
have
Slay
been
the Spire afterwards.
cognitively aware of its systems and existence to some degree or another.
Yeah, but
Like
didn't play it, didn't know what it's about, didn't know what its specific decisions were, didn't know how it handled the same design problems that it did. And here's
sure,
the thing, Balatro is a complete anomaly. It is truly a solo design game, which almost no games actually are. The developer of it, whose name I don't even know, and I don't even know if it's public, the the Balatro developer like play tested it with maybe a handful of friends, maybe after it was basically already done. Like
oh, so this was like an anomaly of an anomaly that blew
it's
up
an
the way it did. It's
anomaly of an
unheard of.
anomaly. Exactly. In
For
every
an indie
single way.
studio to succeed in the first place is like incredibly unlikely relative to
Correct.
project shipped. This
So
is
that's like the counterexample, but it's definitely in the realm of the example that the counterexample that proves the rule. I don't remember the exact saying,
yeah, exactly.
but
Like I
you know
feel
what I
like we
mean.
exist in this universe where like random unpredictable things can happen like that. But if you choose some like super outlier point in the first place, is it like yeah?
Right.
Any,
And
anyway, people should look at games.
so so if I have my three criteria for making a great games, that game has an amazing vision. It had all of the time that it needed because he was a solo developer. Did not, he did not manage to fingers. He did not manage, he did not want to collaborate. He didn't do collaborate. It might have made the game worse for all we know. But like the vision for it was so strong and so crisp that is what made it compelling to other people. And that's what makes it a really great game. That is not a roadmap for other people. It is not advice that people should follow, right? So you should play other people's games. You should play other games that are similar to yours and what you want to do, because that helps you understand your own game better. You should take time away from your game when you're working on it so that you don't get stuck too much in the mud, because hopefully this has been an experience that everyone has had. If you have some sort of problem you're trying to solve, you sit and you fixate on it for days and days and days. You get nowhere. You're doing circular logic. You take a break. You stop thinking about it. You go take a walk. You go take a hike. You take a vacation. You come back to it. All of a sudden you're fresh, and all of a sudden the answer immediately pops into your brain. Right?
Cool. I mean, I agree. So let's talk. So we got Netrunner Dev. You're running the team right now. What are some of the, how do I put it? What do you think makes great game development versus design? Because I feel like this is sort of a different question, and maybe you just lump it all together philosophically, but
No, I mean, you're definitely right. They're different in my opinion. I think game development is far more structured. Like
you
if
think
you
you need to be
told
process oriented about design and iterating on that process.
on development.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, on
Yes.
development.
Yeah. I think design, you could tell me that you have some sort of entirely wacky way of coming up with your designs, game designs, and I'll go, great for you. If that works, do it.
It
Right?
almost sounds like you're saying like design is the art and dev is the science.
It is. Yes. Entirely.
So
Yep.
development is an analytical process to improve games.
Yes. And it does still have creativity involved in it, of course.
Sure.
Just how literally like science actually has some,
Of course.
artistry and
So does
creativity to it.
engineering, right? Yeah, of course.
Exactly. But yeah, development, especially board game development, and like when you're a developer for a publisher, is you're not just refining numbers, you are also defining the space that text can take up on a card. You are determining the component size, the card thickness. You're dealing with like the price. You're saying, finance team or whoever is the head of business, or maybe you are going like, I think that this game the market would pay $40 for this game and no more, which means that I need to make it so that the components that I'm putting into this game cost less than previous rule of thumb is $8. Tariffs change things,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Things we're ignoring for $200.
So yeah. So like development by itself, it kind of not design, development is a practical logistics, empirical kind of task, skill set, process.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
So in terms of the game development, in terms of like game systems design, game systems development, what are the components of this analytical process if you had to break it down? Like where would you recommend someone when they're past the design phase? Because and I would say like for most board game designers, they're going to approach it from a waterfall method. They're going to have the design phase and they're going to move to the development phase. What should people be doing in that development phase in your opinion?
It depends on what your goals are for the game. So Raph is going to sit here and be like, I hate that this dude never gives me a straight
subjective answer,
and it's always conditional. But here's the honest truth. The reason why I do this is because that is what I think the correct answer is, right? So what are your goals for the game? Are you following the traditional, I'm going to design a game, I'm going to pitch it to publishers, and then I want to get it signed pipeline? If so, then the answer still changes based off of which publishers you want to try to pitch to. If you're pitching to a Hasbro, you're pitching to a Stonemaier, you're pitching to Asmodee. They have in-house developers. If you're pitching to a indie place, right, you probably will get the choice of how involved you want to be in the project. which
Random
then,
question, by the way. If you go to like
yes.
Asmodee or Hasbro, can you even like give them a sell sheet? Like, is someone actually going to read that thing if you hand it to them?
Yeah, for sure. Like yeah, yeah. Like
I was just
Hasbro,
curious.
Hasbro has an inventor relations person. Usually they're very, very. I mean, they're nice.
I'm sure.
Every iteration that I've met, they're always very, very
Like, if
nice.
they're gonna have a function like that, they may as well be like good, supportive
Yeah,
people. Why
right.
not?
Exactly. Yeah, they'll happily meet with you. They'll read your sell sheet. That's what they do. That's their job, and so they're pretty efficient at it. Um,
And
yeah,
they must get so many. They must just get inundated with those, like
yeah,
just 100 a
yeah,
week, probably. Uh,
yeah. But they'll also send out. Oh, I don't know if I can say that. Never mind.
um,
Ignore that thought.
So analytical process. So you go to a big guy, they're going to take your thing and dev it for you, and you have to be a little bit more hands off autonomously. This is people. This is why people. I know one guy who refuses to do anything besides independently publish.
Independently publish. Yes,
No, I knew the word. I just
you're good.
felt
You're good.
awkward saying punish. Independently publish because he wants full creative control. He doesn't want to take his hands off the wheel, and
Right.
that's his thing.
And so for me, the question is, why are you making games? Right. For me, I already talked about my motivation. It's because I want people to play the games. I want them in people's hands. I want to make great games that people are going to have, enjoy, and create either some sort of special experience for them or engaged experience, whatever that is.
But if you
Right.
are a person developing
Yes.
yourself, how would you
Uh-huh.
approach that?
Like developing your own game.
Like you're done with design,
Yes.
you're on to the development phase. How do you develop?
Okay. So I think the other question that you want me to answer here is how do you know when you're done with design, right? That's true.
No, I don't.
Like when do
I
you
think we
think you should
covered
move
that.
on to the really?
Yeah. You just hit the send button at some point because you're just like done.
Well, you're
Like there
saying
is
for
no.
yourself, right? So like if I'm designing a game and I'm thinking that I'm going to release it myself, right? When do I think I'm different and I'm done with the design phase and moving on to the development phase? Right? And then what do I do
Hmm.
during that development phase and
Yeah, I think.
what are the tasks
Yeah,
at
I
it?
mean,
Right?
sure. I mean, I think as we know firsthand, you can have redesigns to some degree
Of
inside the
course.
development phase
I
constantly.
mean,
So I
yeah.
don't want to like.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
want to parse it semantically like that. I'm more saying as development as an activity. What are you doing to improve the game?
Okay, sure. So what am I doing to improve the game? I am running through that iteration loop. So I'm making a new version. I'm playtesting it. It depends on where exactly things are at and what you're playtesting for, but every single playtest you should have a hypothesis basically that you're trying to test, like something that you're trying to explore, some questions that you're trying to answer. You playtest it with people. You should playtesting it with strangers as well. That's a really big thing. Please do not just playtest it with your friends or your family alone. Playtest it with strangers. See how
Wait, but if I do
how
that,
those questions were answered.
If I do, I can make Balatro.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think really he playtested it himself and he had such a clear vision that he was able to answer those questions. And I'm
Oh,
assuming the reason why it worked for him. It's the only thing that makes sense to me.
yeah.
So, um, playtest it
So
with
new
other
version
people,
playtest.
playtest it, get your questions answered. You'll probably have a bunch of new questions come up as a result. Try to answer those questions the best you can. Like, think through solutions to those problems that you're seeing, implement those, playtest again, keep doing that forever and ever and ever.
Yeah, and see what I would give as an answer to when you're done is when you're going back and forth on stupid stuff, for lack of a better term. Like at some point you're debating whether that 2 should be a 3 or whether that 1 should maybe like be, maybe that 2 should be a 1-3, and it's like, there's probably a right answer, but it's marginal enough that we can just like proceed.
I think in card games, it's actually not marginal at all. And I was literally thinking about this exact thing earlier this morning. And I think that we are still roughly within somewhere between the design and development. Like, I don't think we're fully on into development phase, if that makes sense.
Sure. I mean, like I said, I think
Yeah.
you can always go back and improve things from future.
Yeah.
Like I
But
don't.
like,
Yeah.
my point here is that the difference between a 2 and a 3, depending on the context, depending on the card, depending on exactly what we're talking about, can be the entire difference between the game feeling balanced and feeling engaging, and a game having a really, really narrow strategy that dominates everything. And so then the game kind of just doesn't, the good parts of the game don't shine through.
Well, I'll share some internal stuff because I'm allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Like I feel like we don't have a good, I'm going to say quantitative model. Obviously, I don't really like believe in like smooth curve quantitative models for card games or
Right.
whatever. But I think we don't have a good quantitative model for like our lightning strike effect. What should damage cost on a card? And like if we
Yeah.
don't know exactly what it should cost in what way to
Right.
remove something
We're
or
still
do X
figuring
amount of
it out.
damage, yeah, then if we figure something out later about that, that could totally like tweak all the numbers on everything because everything's in the context of like what that damage, effect
Right.
costs.
Like
Um,
thresholds really matter when it comes to like these specific lightning bolt like
right. The difference
effects.
between 1 and 0 is
The one,
may as well be
right.
infinity in a lot of game contexts.
But like, okay, so for context, I don't know if you saw this, but I nerfed guardsman from 5 attack to 4 attack to
I
10,
did. I did.
right? And that is partially a response to a defensive card, reactive shield. For the audience, it is a thing that you can play kind of proactively that scales with the strength of the unit that you're playing on. So that costs 3. Guardsman costs 5, and the combination of the cards were really powerful together. And I sat there and I went, what should shield realistically cost, given that it scales with unit cost? So if I'm saving a 6 mana or a 5 mana creature for it, it's effectively like I'm saving 2 mana or 3 mana on it by using 3 to save a 6 mana card. Because the difference is I let it go. I can replay the card from my hand. The exact difference is 2 or 3 mana. Okay, but it gets countered by these small paying 1 damage effects. What are those going to cost normally? They're going to cost like 1 or 2 max. There's nothing that's going to like say deal 1 damage. That's its only effect and cost 3, which means that the counters to this card are always going to cost less than it. If I bump this to 4, this card becomes incredibly swingy. It says either, yes, I saved a whole bunch of mana on specifically a 5 or 6 cost energy, right? If it costs 4, I need to be playing it on a 5 or 6 energy card, right? Because playing it 4 energy on a 2 or 3 cost instead of just replaying the card makes very little sense, right? But then it also gets blown out by a 1 or 2 energy card. And our game is a lot about energy differentials and how efficient you're being with your energy, because that is the limited resource. So with that in mind, I think that reactive shield has to cost 3. I think that is actually what its correct cost is. And that's the reason why I nerf guardsman's attack.
Sure.
Right?
And so like, yeah, these sort of like minutia interactions, I think, quickly create unmappable,
Yeah, I think unmappable
unanalyzable
tracks.
depth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like you're just left, like you were saying, like sort of guessing, trying to figure out, I think especially like Fractals is in ECG. That's really critical to what we're doing, is that like it's all available in a box. There's going to be a flat price. Much to Ben's chagrin, we won't be
It's
doing
not to
shiny
my
boost.
chagrin.
We won't be
It's
doing
not my
shiny
shit.
boot. We won't be doing shiny boosters anytime soon.
I think that for specifically alt arts that don't require you to, like, you can just get the game normally, like, come on. Come on. Alt arts are fun.
Yeah, I mean, I, the I think a lot of people are experimenting with the model right now. I think there's a lot of games I really like and respect. Shout out to like Goodnick,
Yeah.
are doing it right now. I don't know. I wish I knew this company's sales data. I really do, but um, much like with design, I think one thing we've talked about is, you have your design focus and everything you need to do needs to reinforce that design focus. I think that's also true at like a company level, and we just need to, stick to our goals of.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
I I get it.
I'm not I'm never in favor of booster packs or gambling or loot
Listen, the
boxes
top is
as
in,
a
man.
concept.
Polymarket, the top is in. That's all I gotta say.
I don't even
But
know what you're saying right now.
you know, Polymarket and Kalshi and stuff like the
I
predictive
literally have no
market.
idea.
Oh, we'll talk offline.
Yeah, later.
So anyway, development. Oh my God, not development. Discrete interactions, their implications for depth, how
Yep.
that maps towards like overall card game complexity, and then um, how we're building products. Okay, I'll cut all this out. So ECGs, you have the set box product, and that means you want relatively homogeneous power levels for cards in general contexts. And this makes mapping the interactions even kind of harder because like in a TCG, you can just like print this like overpowered crap, for lack of a better word. And then it's collectible. Like there's this great card in standard Magic right now called Badger Mole Cub. I don't know if you've seen it, but
Wait,
they print.
actually, that's his name?
Yeah, it's like an avatar set card. It's a 2 mana 2/2
Oh, yeah. Okay, I've
that
heard of
like
this
makes
card.
all your lands tap for infinity, and then you just
Right.
make infinite mana on turn 3 in standard. So like they can just print that garbage though and put it at mythic because like there's no one to tell them no, I guess. But like, for us that erodes game system. So all this to say, we have these requirements around not being able to really project. Like the game design goals mean that we can't project the standard play environment in any sort of meaningful way. And so we're left to guess based on a combination of theory and limited analysis, limited data,
Right.
very limited.
So I have two thoughts I want to add here. The first one is people at Wizards of the Coast are very talented, right? And so like Badger Male Cub or whatever, I doubt was printed. Like why was this card printed? It's not just because they wanted a mythic chase rare, right? They're probably like it does need to be at a higher power level. But like we also are saying like we think that 6 energy units, because of how our resource system is, it caps out at 6, need to be powerful and they need to be more powerful than other units. So it's like within the game system, you can say this thing needs to be more powerful than this other thing, independent of like the product that's being sold, right? I bet you the Badger Mole Cub came from a lack of playtesting or some other miscommunication. I don't think that there's
Why?
designers at okay, so this is entirely speculation, but we all
Understood.
know that Magic has been seeing more sets released than ever before, right? At a pace that is completely unheard of for any TCG and certainly for Magic. There are a lot of different environments in Magic, and they would be a really hard for any designer to, or even it's hard for the players. It's hard for full-time content creators who have the final cards to keep up with all this stuff, let alone designers or playtesters who are constantly getting new cards, trying to change the card values. Like, we don't know what Badger Mole Cub was like in testing. Maybe it was that not enough testing went to the set. Maybe it's that some oversight happened. Maybe it was some combination of cards. Maybe some other card got changed that was really good versus 2 drops, and that's why it didn't get seen for the 2 months or whatever that card was there. You never know why these things unless you like literally know the
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
But all of this is to go back to the point of this is why it's important to make sure your designs are given enough time because especially in card games are so complex. There's so many interweaving dynamics. Changing one card somewhere is going to change the entire ecosystem. That's what we call them metas. But realistically, it is an ecosystem. And humans are so bad at reintroducing life into an ecosystem and not having it go to plan, right?
Yeah.
So it's incredibly hard. I'm not saying that I know exactly what happened here, but
Who
like
quoted me
this is the
yesterday?
cost.
Do you know
Who
the
quoted you?
Mike Tyson quote? Someone said this to me
Which
recently.
one?
Everyone's got a plan until you punch him in the face. So you
Oh
get
yeah,
punched
yeah,
in the
yeah.
face.
You
Yeah,
mentioned
yeah,
that.
yeah. That's sort of what it's
Yeah,
like with this,
yeah.
right? Like,
But it's like this is what the whole like I'm fine calling it just corporate greed, right? Like trying to cash out on stuff and all these
I
other different
mean,
sets.
yeah,
Like I'm fine calling it a spade,
They're
right?
trying to go faster to make more money.
To make more money.
Right.
They're
That's the motive.
and they're dealing like I think they're doing serious brand damage, which is crazy to me. Like that's like brand is like one of your most valuable things.
Yeah.
You don't think so? With their core
Do I think
audience?
they are? I mean, of course. I mean,
Yeah,
I've been of that
right.
opinion for a very long time. But
Yeah.
I think the political nature of the systems means the only thing that shows up on the spreadsheet isn't because there is a brand value on every
Sure.
company's spreadsheet, and
Short term.
okay, but it's not reflected, and so the CEO continues to get his pay packages, and the
Correct.
incentives are there, and
Correct.
so
Yes.
I mean, the behavior is incentivized. If you want to talk about
Correct.
gamification,
But like, let's talk about like Magic in like 4 or 5 years from now, and maybe it has been dethroned as the number one game because their players left for other things.
maybe.
Maybe it's not guaranteed to happen. But honestly, if they kept printing, I think they've
It
reduced.
seems like all these corporations are in a rat race to eat their own to eat their tails as
Yeah,
fast as they can anyway. So I'm not sure it's like a may just
yeah,
be a race to the bottom, honestly. But
maybe. Anyways, so getting back to the other point that I wanted to make here when we're talking about the details of how you make these decisions in games, when I was talking about the specific costs, and this is what the relationship of reactive shield is to ping one damage effects, and this is typically what those would cost, and this is how we think about the energy retrieval and when things are strong versus not strong. All of that is the framework that you use to make informed decisions. And so there's never like a clear answer, but you have to harken back to your design goals about what you're trying to achieve in the game and what you want your game to be. And that should be your guiding light. And that's the reason why everything is contextual and all these answers. It's impossible to tell you the exact answer because I need to know the exact circumstances for the problem that we're trying to solve. But that's what a great game developer looks like. They understand the system. They're not just saying, oh, this thing is overpowered or underpounded, so it needs to get nerfed. They understand the ecosystem. And so they're with understanding that you cannot predict what's going to happen, making the judgment calls to say, this is directionally correct. And this is less risky than this other thing. Or if this turns out to be different than I expect it to be, it's an okay outcome for the ecosystem. Right?
yeah, I think so. So, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide brief summary here, sort of what we discussed, and then I'll toss it over to you for any last thoughts, and then we can call it.
Sure.
I think this has been pretty good overall. I think we'd probably go on about this for another couple of hours, but we're not going to do that.
We really could.
Game devs, yeah, it's tough. It's
Yeah.
tough when we're both so in it, I guess.
Yeah.
So to me, it seems like you've been on this learning process in terms of why you're making games in the first place. And over a decade and almost a decade and a half, not to date you, you've been really wrestling with your vision for why you're making games. And that's really influenced, how you're thinking about it today in terms of how your process links to the goal
Yeah.
of everything you're sort of doing. And really dotting I's and crossing T's in terms of building more cohesive everything, like across the board, like
Yep.
systems,
Yep.
teams, processes. Is there anything, from your side that you want to close with or closing thoughts for people?
I think you nailed it. And I think I talk a lot.
No, good. I think this was really good overall. I think there were a lot of great takeaways and stuff, but yeah, hopefully the audience got some value out of it too. So Rafael Soccer with Time Lost Studios. This was Ben with Pink Hawk, Null Signal Games, notably Time Lost Studios,
Yep.
hashtag sponsored. More info in the description below. Maybe we'll shout out Null Signal Games somewhere so people can go look at Netrunner and stuff if they're interested too. And thank you so much for spending time with us today. All right. Ciao, ciao.